You're listening to Left at the Valley 2.0, Atheist, Skeptic, and Humanist Radio.
LATV is proud to present a MAGA-approved version of Art Spiegelman's Mouse. Poland, 1942.
I can't stand the constant persecution, honey. It's too much.
I know times are difficult, my love, but we must try, no matter the risk. Put on your coat.
I hate this. I'm scared. What if we get there and...
Don't even think that way. Stay calm. Just look straight ahead and everything will be fine.
But our worst fears were confirmed. They wanted us to wear masks, and he collapsed.
I can't bear it. The humanity. I can't go on.
We must forge on and live our lives and be strong, Annie.
Hey, you two, come here.
Oh no, was this the end? We kept our eyes low, as not to provoke him.
I just wanted to let you know that the vaccine is safe and effective.
The cruelty was too much.
And it's required by some, but by no means all employers.
We were lucky to be able to stagger away from this monster.
What is this world coming to?
This wouldn't be happening if Das Führer hadn't been ripped away from that obviously rigged election.
Next time on Mouse, our troubles deepen.
Oh, honey, there's a subpoena for your January 6th protest.
Damn them all. I'm being persecuted for being a white mouse, aren't I? I knew it.
Oh, and he knew it.
Hi, this is Janice Selby, and I took a left at the Valley.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you from wet BC, Run with Scissors, Florida, Power Out, Texas, and Lick the Coal Pole, Minnesota, this is Left of the Valley 2.0. My name is Kevin, and let me remind you that every time you get dressed, remember, if you die, that's your ghost outfit forever. Joining me as usual is the team who saw Jesus' face in a margarine tub and said, I can't believe it's not Buddha.
No, yeah.
He thinks change is inevitable, except in vending machines. Brett Lee. He's not there again. Or is he muted himself again?
What the heck, Brent?
He'll tell you that eagles soar, but weasels don't get sucked into jet engines. Benjamin.
Hello. I am not muted.
And she went to a place that serves breakfast at any time, so she ordered French toast during the Renaissance. Hertzie.
Sparked a revolution.
Guys, welcome back. And this is brought to you by our new patrons, Charles Julier, who doesn't cheat death. He just won fair and square against it. That's how good he is. You too can become a patron. Just go over to patreon.com/LATV and help us grow the show. Guys, welcome back. And today we'll be talking to Ian Harris in the second half of the show. But first, let's go with our usual chit-chat. In medical news, a woman in New York City appears to have been effectively cured of HIV after receiving a HIV-resistant stem cells and antiretroviral therapy. So this is pretty cool news. This is the third person and the first woman to officially achieve this HIV remission. The treatment apparently, however, is risky and difficult to scale up, but they're working on it right now. The team that treated her has presented their case at the Conference on Retroviruses and Opportunistic Infection, or CROI 2022. She was diagnosed in 2013 with HIV-1 and was treated using stem cells from a placenta, which was actually unrelated to her in the placenta anyway. But it had a rare CCRS slash Delta 32/32 mutation that makes the stem cells HIV resistant. So, and at this point, she has no detectable HIV after 14 months. So that's fantastic news.
Yeah,
Wow.
the
That
medical
is
stuffs
so
have been
cool.
crazy. Have you seen this guy who got the pig hard?
Yes.
It's incredible to think that, not even 100 years ago, all of this stuff wasn't even possible. I mean, 50 years ago, by the time I was, close to being born, you had a heart problem that was almost a death sentence. Now today it's a day procedure. They could just get you in and out of there in no time.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
pretty cool to see the progress.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why people are living a lot longer now. They don't have to worry about it nearly as much if they have access to the medical.
That is
You need
key.
to add that caveat there.
You only have that issue in the States, really. So the rest of the world, well, maybe not the rest of the world, but the rest of the Western countries anyway, they don't have that issue.
Right? No, just us.
Yeah, just it couldn't happen to a better guy news. Donald Trump and two of his crotch goblins will have to testify under oath in a civil probe.
Oh shit! That's not going to go well.
No, that's not going to roll.
He's really bad about incriminating himself. He seems to do it a lot, like a lot.
Yeah.
Probe.
Like a whole bunch.
Just a probe.
Just a probe.
We don't even need a probe. Like you can just let him talk. Give him a stage.
Yeah, pretty much.
Put him in front of people.
Yeah, put him in front of people and give him some topics that are close to what you want to learn. He'll talk about it.
Against Trump is himself.
Yeah. But now it's flushing all the documents in the toilet. Okay, we need better toilets.
Right.
This is a big problem. You flush it 5-6 times.
So many times. That's totally not what he was talking about back then at all. No way. No way those two are related.
So despite all the efforts to stop the New York Attorney General from probing into the Trump family affairs, a New York judge ruled on Thursday that the Trumps must answer under oath within 21 days.
Damn.
So Judge Arthur, hopefully I'm not going to massacre this, Engoron, one of the New York Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Attorney General Letitia James to have the Don Jr. and Ivanka, whatever his name is, testified.
Yeah.
There's copious amount of evidence of possible financial fraud, which gave the Attorney General clear right to subpoena the Trumps, and that's what the judge said essentially. Nice. So, of course, Trump's attorney is calling it a witch hunt.
I love when they call it a witch hunt.
It's not like Trump hasn't lied under oath before, so.
Exactly. Anytime you go after anybody on the right for any reason, it's a witch hunt.
Right.
And whenever they go after the left, it's just justice.
I thought left had all those Satanists and witches. So where are all these witches that we're hunting?
Oh, you're talking about good old Greg Locke?
Wicked.
I could go with a whole, all of QAnon has a whole bunch of satanic stuff.
Okay.
So James said that her nearly 3-year investigation into Trump has uncovered significant evidence of possible fraud where inflation and deflation of Trump properties was used to secure loans and get tax write-offs. So that's what he's being accused of in the civil trial. The judge declined to put the subpoenas on hold because while that's happening, there's also Trump is facing a criminal case. That's also led by the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Braggs, and that one is pending. So the judge decided, okay, well, even if you're because sometimes, when you're facing a criminal trial, it's a lot to put a civil trial at the same time. Judge said, I don't care. They're both going forward.
Wow. You know what's great about the civil trial and the state trial? Neither of them can be pardoned.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We might, there's a very good possibility here, if this goes ahead and, best case scenario is that Trump might end up losing pretty much everything. And the only thing he'd be left with is pension from being president. And I think there's another pension that he also got when he was doing The Apprentice. That could be his only amount of money that he would actually receive.
But he said he doesn't want the money for being president. He donated it all. So
yeah, right.
Exactly.
Stop donating it. He did. No, he did donate when he was president. He donated all of his presidential income. He did. That's the thing.
So he should keep doing that then, And,
right. You gotta know He was getting special, not special forces, the security force that protects the presidents. What was the
Secret Service?
Oh, Secret Service. Yeah.
You're getting Secret Service to stay at his hotels and all that. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He
It's
got income
$400.
in other ways.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Isn't the presidential salary just kind of
$400,000 a year.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
something
So
like
it's
that.
not just a ceremonial amount of.
No,
It's still pretty good. Yeah, I mean,
$12.37
an
I
hour.
remember, guys, this is going to be fun because I'm hoping this goes forward because you got to remember this is a family who's been barred from owning a charity in New York, right? And now it's New York. Of course, Trump is also saying New York's not going to give me a fair trial. Yeah, they're going to give you as fair as you could possibly get. You know, would you want
Right.
this to happen in Florida?
I mean, nothing's ever fair according to him anyway. So it doesn't fuck it. You know, I can't.
Unless it's going his way.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
And last but not least, from the CBC, and despite the conspiracies that the Prime Minister somehow fled to U.S. because of a trucker convoy, the Canadian government has decided they had enough.
Yes.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has taken a rare step of declaring a national public order emergency to end what was become an anti-government protest.
Arrests, baby.
Yes.
They're happening.
So the group's public leaders have held regular news conference. Organizers have hired a lawyer to represent them in a nascent class action suit. Some leaders, like Tamara Lich, who actually led the Maverick Political Party. The Maverick Political Party is one of those little fringe political parties.
They were trying to get the West to separate from the east of Canada.
That's right.
what
They were trying to get the three provinces from the West, BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, to secede from the rest of Canada.
Which, yeah, no.
oh
But
shit.
anyway.
Yeah. She's been arrested.
Woohoo.
Another main organizer of the truck convoy is it's a group called Canada Unity, which initially published a memorandum of understanding calling for the end of the pandemic restriction. The group later withdrew the memo after it came under criticism that in part seemed to endorse the toppling of the government. So, we want the pandemic restrictions to cease, and then we also want the government to stop as well. So,
Like, well, that will take care of it, right? You know, you just topple the government, and there goes all the mandates.
Yeah.
Because the government's in shambles.
No laws.
Yeah, no laws at all.
no laws at all. So on Wednesday, the Ottawa police ordered protesters to leave or face criminal charges. In Alberta, 4 protesters. In Alberta, there's also some low protests around the borders, and one of them is in Alberta. 4 protesters were charged with conspiracy to murder police officers in relation for what the police describe as a plan to respond violently to police efforts to break up a blockade in Coots. This is a small village in southern Alberta bordering Montana. So the Prime Minister's emergency order, which is, as he has
It's
called
also seizing bank accounts.
yes, I'm getting to that,
Oh, sorry.
which is called a last resort, is in no way a limit on peaceful assembly of freedom or expression, but it has real teeth. It does allow the police to seize trucks and other vehicles using blockades. Tow truck operators must now work with the law enforcement agency or face arrest if they refuse. Insurance companies will be required to revoke insurance on any vehicle used in blockades, and the banks can freeze demonstrators' personal accounts. The declaration must be approved by Parliament within a week. So more than 100 people were arrested Friday. Police formed lines, and I've seen the videos of this. They essentially formed lines, and they simply started walking. And they're not even holding shields, or some of them had batons, but that's about it. There was no like tear gas or anything like that. They were just basically formed a line. They started walking and pushing the people back. More 100 people were arrested Friday. Like I said, the police lines advanced rapidly throughout the street of Ottawa and forced protesters away from Parliament Hill on Saturday morning. And according to the polls, anywhere from 65 to 75% of Canadians do not approve of this protest.
Can I just also point out that the protesters, let's just talk about who these kind of people are, for
I'm getting a voice from the beyond.
Oh, shit. I'm on camera because I feel like crap and I need to be able to leave whenever I need, but I can be the voice in the podcast. Anyway.
Come on.
Anyways, the faces of these people. There was a picture I saw recently of a little boy playing lawn bowling on the streets, part of this occupation. His parents had strapped a gas can to his back.
Wow.
What?
Jeez.
Why?
Yep. It's kind of like a diversion tactic. It's not normal.
That's weird.
That is insane.
That-
Well, that's the thing. So, if as a police officer, if you see a kid playing in the street and they have something strapped to their back, that's bad. And that may just be me with a, very USA kind of perspective on this, because a lot of people come out of the military from Iraq and become cops. They're likely to freak out about that.
Oh yeah, that could be like what PTSD inducing,
And this is the kind of people that are out there. They're not there for any valiant reason.
Yeah.
They're
Make no mistake. This is MAGA Canadian edition.
well,
This is
what
what it
has
is.
happened is the US got a hold of this and fucking Q and the right took over. Like the crazy
Yeah.
people from down south have come and taken over.
I also like to point out something, that poll I just mentioned there. 65 to 75% of Canadians do not approve, which means the 25 to 30% that do, that is the conservatives. That is the number we always quote here, that we say 1/3. That is that.
One of the things I saw said 42% of Canadians might not agree with everything that they're saying, but they understand their frustrations. So when they're saying that 60% don't agree, I think what they're saying is the other 40% understand the frustrations.
Oh yeah,
and
get
that
the
has
frustration.
absolutely nothing to do with actually agreeing with the protest, because I would venture that a lot less than 40% agree with the protest.
I understand. Everybody's got COVID fatigue. I'm tired of it too.
Exactly. We get it, but like whatever.
But
You guys did get it, the COVID.
Sabrina tells me to empty the dishwasher. I don't lock myself in the garage of my truck and just honk. Until in my way, right?
Right.
I mean,
you should. Can you start doing that from now on?
So real quick, I have a question. So we were just covering this on Unapologetics. Nikki and I were talking about it, and I was under the impression there was like 90% of the truckers were vaccinated, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
80% of all Canadians are vaccinated, and that's 5 years and up.
Yep.
Wow. So this 10% is enough to disrupt all the entire chain.
That's the thing. There's a lot of non-truckers.
That's
that are
the thing.
there.
It started with that.
Yeah.
But there's maybe like 250 trucks in there.
If that.
If that. The rest of the people
Did
are
you
there
guys
are
hear
just
the
like
story
regular
about one
right-wingers.
guy? He's like, "Oh, I found out that one of my employees took my truck against my knowledge and is like on his way to some protest. So I just want you to know I've hired a private tow truck company. They're on the way to go get the truck, and he can figure out how to get home." He's fired.
That's awesome.
Of course, in true Canadian fashion, he did still fire the guy, but he allowed the truck driver, to drive the guy home. And anyway, it ended with a true Canadian kind of feel good, but he's still fired.
That's crazy. But so I mean, but the question is, so they're blocking the way physically, like people cannot get through, and so that's what's screwing up the supply chain stuff, right?
Well,
supply chain was already screwed before all of this.
Well, it's not just that. You got to remember that Ottawa's an old city.
Yeah.
And just like every old city, they weren't really designed for truck traffic. The roads are narrow. So when you come in with a semi in there, it doesn't take a lot to block everything. Right?
Okay.
Imagine,
is it like streets of Quebec kind of thing?
Well, it would be kind of similar, right?
Yeah. Or downtown Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go in a place that which is obviously designed for pedestrians and cyclists and a few cars here and there, you come in with a couple of semis, you're blocking everything in no time, right? It doesn't take a lot of time to do that. So.
And they're blocking things like bridges too.
Yeah,
which have a finite amount of lanes, right?
So it's really funny to watch these videos of people, and the police have been really kind of good on this. They're not like shooting with rubber bullets or anything like that. There's not even tear gas, like I said.
Are you trying to shame Minnesota? Because you should keep going.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's not even shields or anything. So a few of them have their batons, and that's about it. They're not whacking on people. They're just marching and just
because the mandate is to like protest super peacefully, so that they could then claim police brutality. So the police are responding in kind, but still arresting them for not complying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like walking into one. We're sorry about all this. We're sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what's happening. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we'll see what happens with that. All right. All right, Benjamin. It's time for
things that make
you go.
That works better.
All right. So in Switzerland, there is currently a contest in which they've received 832 applications for an as yet undisclosed number of spots. So they're going to fill this in. It's going to be a trial run. Let's make some guesses. A trial run for what?
I don't know. In Switzerland.
Remaining neutral.
Cheese rolling.
Cheese roll.
Ooh, chocolate tester.
Right? The Swiss rolls, you know?
Yeah.
Those are good.
No, so actually, they're having volunteers to test out a new Swiss jail.
New Swiss jail?
Yes.
Make sure it's comfy enough.
Yeah, what do you got to test?
Yeah, so there's going to be a test run in which they're going to have some volunteers who must live locally, be at least 18 years old. They're in store for an experience like reality TV, honestly. So they're going to just go into the Zurich West Prison, and they're going to help test the pre-child detention and jail services.
Cool.
Okay.
Is this something you would sign up for? So let's just say your town was like, we just built this jail. Come hang out here for a few nights, see what it's like. We're going to just do a trial run before we put actual prisoners in here.
I might actually sign up for that.
I would do
they
it.
treat you the same?
Well, hold on.
It's like an Airbnb, you know? I mean, it's
Switzerland we're talking about. This is not Alabama. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
True.
So
I would do it with caveats.
a lot of places in Europe, like Norway, Switzerland, all these places, you go to prison, it's almost like going to camp.
I'm not so sure I want to test out what it feels like to be a prisoner.
Yeah, but that's because you're imagining the big cell and the slamming the door, and you're stuck in a 6x6 room.
No,
They're going to do that.
That's not what I'm really picturing, because I don't know what it looks like in one of those jails. I just don't know that I want to be treated like a prisoner.
There's that voice again.
I know.
So yeah, I would be willing to test the Switzerland prison. I would not do this. I would not do this in America. Absolutely.
No, right. Yeah.
Like, you're not going to go do that in like St. Paul or Minneapolis.
No.
Nope.
Definitely not.
Nope. I think the Stanford experiment already showed that white dudes who like being mean just keep being mean.
Right.
Really?
So
do
we know more about the prison? They serve 3 squares a day. They give you time to go exercise, or is it like
that's what I mean.
Going in there for isolation, or?
So basically, there's not that many details on like exactly what the test run's going to involve.
Mm-hmm.
They're just saying it's test run. Please volunteer to do this. And I honestly think it's great that they got 832 applications of people willing to give up their time to test this.
Are they giving them like a stipend, a little monetary incentive?
No, they're asking for volunteers.
Yeah.
832 people are like, sure, I'll see what it's like to
if you're a
sleep in
criminal
jail.
mastermind, why don't you go test the jail first before you commit your crime? Say, this is not too bad. So then you can do your crime after that.
Right? Then you give me the full tour, please. I want to see where everything is and how it works.
Just in case I get caught. When I
Just in case I end up here.
In these codes, do you reset these daily? Do you reset the codes? Yeah.
Look, I'm just trying to help out. Make sure it's real secure. That's all. That's all.
Where does that camera point exactly?
Right. Where does it? Yeah. Let me see the camera screens. See where it points. See everything. It's great. It's fine.
Let me help you find if there's any blind spots.
Just in case there's a bit of layout of the place there. So just in case I need to dig a tunnel out. Spoons.
So this wall. What kind of drilling do you think it would take to get through this wall? Just curious.
That is some a question some boomer carpenter dude would ask me. Like, so, what do you think can break through this? Huh? What do you make of this? Is that oak?
Hey,
What's
I'll
that?
tell you some solid mahogany there, buddy. You're not brushing me away through that one. That's some solid mahogany if I've seen them.
Solid mahogany.
Mahogany.
That's what they called me in high school.
Oh, really?
I like that.
Benjamin Mahogany.
Mahog for sure. You know?
Duh. Did you go to high school with me? What the hell, Brent?
I heard stories. I hear stories.
You should. Hertzie, have you heard the stories?
I don't think I've heard the stories.
Oh,
you're missing
the
out.
Fabled Mahog.
I'm too far up north. They don't get up here.
Yeah.
Damn
All right, Hertzie. It's time for our biggest be crazy.
Yeah. So our bigot of the week this week is the Florida Appeals Court, who has overturned a conviction of a former police officer, who shot an autistic man holding a toy and hit his therapist. I believe this story broke like a few years ago. The therapist was on the street, hands in the air, I believe on his knees even, trying to tell the cop that the person he was pointing a gun at was a young man with a toy who was autistic, and that was his patient.
Oh, that happens too often.
I think I remember this. Yeah.
So he had a misdemeanor. So he's going after this for a misdemeanor, but appealed it, and they did because, let's see here, a testimony from a SWAT commander who had been ruled unqualified to give expert testimony, to which I'm like, yes, a SWAT person probably isn't going to be out in the middle of the day, in the middle of the street, walking up to a person sitting almost completely still, playing with a toy.
Do we know what kind of toy it was?
Yeah, what kind of toy was it?
I believe it was a truck.
Oh,
Like
it's
a
not even a
toy
gun.
Not a toy gun or something? Anything?
Nope.
Jesus.
It was definitely not a gun. I'm even pissed off at the person who called the police on this, because I'm thinking, I live in an area with there are a fair number of children. If I saw somebody playing in the street, my first thought would be, hey, let's get you off the street, and then just let me know where your home is so that, I can send you there.
Yeah.
Right. You go out to the street and you try to get the kid off the street. If you have difficulty to get out the kid out of the street, you go, where do you live?
Yeah.
And then go find their house and then be like, hey, go get your kid. They're in the street. It's easy.
Yeah, it's amazing how anti-authoritarian like the Florida people are, until they see somebody doing something they think, they shouldn't be doing, and then they start calling the police.
Yeah.
The most authoritarian response.
We hate government. We hate everything. But oh God, that guy's black. Call the cops quick.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah. He's not supposed to be in this neighborhood.
There's an adult playing with a truck on the road. I think there might be a problem here.
Well, and it's one of those, like, I've heard kid, I've heard young adult, that it was young adult, I've heard adult. It doesn't matter. They're playing with the truck on the road. Woo.
Right. They always try to alter the terms, right?
They do. They twist it so many ways. And my favorite is, 14-year-olds can look very adulty and but I'm like, I don't care. They're still 14 fucking years old.
No, it was a human being.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they committed all of the worst crimes in the world. It's not the cops' jobs to be executioners.
Thank you.
It's a sad reality of we have this mentality of shoot first, ask questions later.
In the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you, Florida Appeals Court, for letting this guy off the hook even more than he already was.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, I mean, this one was fortunate because nobody died. He hit the therapist in the leg, I believe, but it was still just like, my favorite was when he was like, well, I was aiming for the kid, and it's like, how does that make it better?
That's your defense? Jesus Christ.
Not only a bad cop, you're also a bad shot.
At least I didn't hit the kid.
Like, why would you be approaching this kid with a truck with your gun out?
Yeah, like, what are you doing? God, and our Supreme Court sucks right now. So it's going to be, but pretty soon here, it's going to be like an anti-gay, pro-gun, COVID nightmare down here.
Anti-abortion too. Don't forget that one.
And that one's coming down too. Yep.
Yeah, that one's first on the list.
Yeah.
No,
Brent, man,
it's a nightmare.
You got to get out of Florida, bro.
I know, right?
Dude, what are you still doing there anyway?
Like, Florida's starting to make Texas seem nice.
They won't let me out. They keep saying we have to stay.
Oh, the problem is you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't ask.
Yeah.
Just go on a trip. Just go on a trip to California or something and just stay.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to jump the wall. They're walling us in. They're trying to keep us here and keep all the Northerners out. Because the main thing I always hear is, yeah, they moved from up north to retire down here, and then they start voting that way. Jerks. Stay out. Stay out of here.
Yeah. Damn liberals.
Yankees.
As they like to say here in Texas, quit Californiaing my Texas.
Oh, so yeah, of course you would have the same kind of rhetoric in Texas. Yes.
Oh yeah. So in Florida, they're like, quit New Yorking my Florida. Like, I don't know.
Well, I think that I know there's a lot of I think we call them like there's something bird where it's like they'll stay up in snowbirds. Thank you. They're up in like Minnesota for the summer, and then they go to Arizona, Texas, Florida for the winter because it's a lot more mild.
I see that's funny because we have the snowbird thing, but it's usually Canadians going down to Florida.
Yeah,
and I didn't know that. I didn't know that Americans did that too. I thought it was just a Canadian phenomenon, the snowbird thing.
Yeah, that's no, we do that. That's why they always have all those bumper stickers that say, "Why is it called tourist season if you're not allowed to shoot them?" We have those like around here a lot. See a lot of those. Oh yeah, no.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Just use that castle doctrine. It's fine.
Right.
All right, Bradley. It's time for another brilliant moment.
All right. So this one, okay, here we go. Kurt Landry, I want to say Landry, says criticizing a false prophet is cancel culture. Now, I don't know if you guys, I know, right? So this dude, he was on, he's been on Right Wing Watch like a couple times. This is the guy that he like had his whole board. He gets like a whiteboard, you know. He's like writing all this stuff on it.
Dr. Kim?
What's that?
Did you say Dr. Kim?
No, Dr. Kurt Landry.
Oh,
I know they all.
Wrong person with a whiteboard.
Yes.
Yeah, because you say whiteboard, my first one that comes to mind is Glenn Beck. That's the first one I.
Man, wow.
Right, he's white and I'm bored.
Good point. 5 points for that one. That's good.
But
do you guys think that these guys when they get on Right Wing Watch, it's like a badge of honor for them? It's like, oh, you know what? I was on Right Wing Watch. That's because I'm so badass as a Christian,
right? Yeah, I could see that. But just he's the guy that was like he did his whole video about how he's making plans to go to the inauguration on January 20th, and was talking about how it's God already sealed the deal, so he bought the ticket already and like everything because he knew Trump was gonna win.
Yeah, God used his American Express credit card and bought a ticket.
Yeah, and probably ended up having to try to cancel that at the last second when he realized his prophecy didn't happen. So this is that guy. It's
another one of these people that made the bet that Trump's going to win for sure, and of course he didn't. So now he's doubling down on the lie, right?
That's right.
And so he probably wants to cancel. He doesn't want to resell the ticket to anybody because he doesn't want any of those Dems to be there.
That's right. So we have a clip from this dude.
Who's posting the clip?
Did we get it? Oh, there it is. All right, here we go. This is pretty funny.
Brilliant moment.
The church's cancel culture has really it has blossomed into really a global cancel culture. And I'm going to share with you that I really think that since the 2020 election, the body of Christ has canceled its prophets based on the fact that President Trump did not serve a second term. And when that did not serve a second term, there was like this evil accusing of the brethren spirit that rose up, and particularly in the church, and said, this prophet predicted that. There's a false prophet. We maybe didn't stone anybody with rocks, but we certainly stoned them on social media with our own mouth. So Here we are canceling the prophets. I'm not here to defend that whole situation about how it went down, but I will say this, that the scripture says about this in Psalm 105:15. It clearly says, do not touch my anointed ones, no, do my prophets no harm. So when they did miss it and we did harm to them, thus we fed into that river of the cancel culture where we attacked our own. We need to repent from that tonight. We need to get cleansed from that tonight.
All right, so let me say this, right? So the Bible quote very clearly indicates don't mess with any of God's prophets. But if they missed a prophecy and now we figured out that they are false prophets, they are no longer God's prophets, and I can do whatever the hell I want.
Exactly.
That proves it doesn't count, right?
I thought they dismissed everything that happened in Psalms as well. That's just they're just songs.
No, Psalms exist for when every single verse in the Bible is not discredited if it makes their point.
Yeah.
That's very true.
So essentially, he's basically saying, don't kick us out as fraudsters, please.
Yeah.
Especially don't let the other fraudsters denounce the other fraudsters.
No.
Because that makes us look bad. I feel at least.
Kevin, it's more don't stop giving me money.
Oh,
I need more money.
Sure. So if they were attacked, by the left wingness, for example, and denounced as false prophet, then it would be a demonic thing. But since they're attacked by their own, then but what they have to say at this point is we're helping the bad guys win because we're cannibalizing ourselves here.
Yeah.
And they will do that automatically anyway, because for them it was never about the glory of the God. It was always for their own personal thing.
Well,
and they can only be one at the top. So they will do it anyway.
Yeah, well, you can't, because that's the thing is, this guy's smart because though no one's coming after him, he sees they're coming after them. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I better speak up on how bad it is first before they come after me. Yeah. Because I got to protect my place in this world. And so don't you dare, and that's the thing is, that's one of my biggest, top of the list things with these Christians is there's never, ever any accountability.
No.
It's not like this guy real messed up. Let's just kick him out and just say, dude, go preach to yourself, pray to yourself, but we don't want to hear it anymore because you went too far.
It's in a way, I have some admiration for that because it's the right wing does that very, very well. They stick together. They know they're all fraudsters, but they stick together, and that's how they get things done. Even though they're still a minority, the left can actually learn from that. We have a tendency on the left to say, well, if you don't agree with 100% of what I say, therefore we're enemies. That's not how it works. The right, as far as they're concerned, is you can say whatever you want as long as we're trying to own the libs. That's the one point we have to have in common, and we're on the same team. I wish it would work the same way on the left side. I really wish. And also, go ahead.
Sorry. But yeah, you're right. There is gradation, I think, on the left, because we're literally everybody else. The one group is in support of this one demographic, which is the white Christian straight male, and that's it. And the left is everybody else. So we're we're gonna have a lot of different viewpoints, I think.
But the thing is, the right is cannibalizing himself right now. When you're talking about politically, the division between Donald Trump and January 6th it's insane. And you should see the election cycle down here. They are going after each other. They're losing it. It's insane.
Jeez. Yeah.
Kind of gives me hope.
I don't know. I'm worried about any of the ones like Trumpsters or QAnon who get on, because even if it's just one person on a school board, there's a lot of people who don't vote far enough down the ballot. They don't care who's on the school board. No. I don't even have kids and I care who's on the school board.
Well, that's what they're trying to do now. There's this effort to intentionally take over these school boards so they can start banning things and stopping this liberal, leftist, crazy, communist, Marxist agenda.
Didn't you see there's some woman, I think she's running for governor. She has a whole bus and it's I'm who you've been waiting for. Guns, babies, prayer. No joke. Yeah. Jesus. Yeah. I don't know where she's running, but she's running somewhere.
It sounds like Texas, I would
I
say.
think it's Tennessee, actually.
Oh, okay. Close enough.
If it gets too bad, we'll just send the gazpacho police.
Dump soup all over.
I'm still telling you, look, I'm not married. I can marry one of you and make you
Gibbs.
All right. I get Kevin.
You're already there. Okay, fine. There you go. But what about Amy?
Right.
Well, it's going to be the long con on that one. I'm going to
Okay,
marry
that-
Kevin,
we
get my
could work on this.
citizenship.
Yep.
We're going to
okay.
have this big, blown out, elaborate
Uh-huh.
divorce. It's going to be amazing.
Perfect.
Then I'm going to
you guys
marry
are just-
Amy.
I love
you're
it.
just poly
Bring it
homosexuals.
here.
So we're all poly.
Well, you can't legally do that though. So
Yeah, I know it's
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah, that's all.
it is.
Anyway, thank you again for that, Brett Lee.
Bet.
So let's take a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Ian Harris. So that should be very interesting. So stay with us.
It's where it's at. You're listening to Left at the Valley. I don't know why you are, but you are.
I'm Amy with a Y.
And I'm Amy with an I.
And we're the hosts of Secular Soup, where each week we offer up a bowl of real talk about atheism, feminism, politics, parenting, and whatever else we want to talk about because it's our podcast.
Just listen to what these random dudes are saying about our show.
This is what would happen if Daria and Jane grew up and started a podcast.
So if you like extremely foul-mouthed ladies with opinions, this is the podcast for you.
Grab a bowl and taste the magic. Slurp even this.
Hi, I'm God, and I just want to make sure to tell you not to listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud. That's Unapologetics with an X at the end. But, yeah, definitely do not listen to the show. I mean, I swear to me, I will murder my son. I kind of already did that, but don't listen to the show, okay? Hey, Lucy.
Can you not call me that, okay? We already went over what my name is, okay? It's Lucifer.
Alright, look, Luce. You wanna go with me? I'm gonna go fuck with this guy, Joe.
No, don't do that, okay? Can you just leave him alone?
Yeah, I'm gonna kill his family.
No, don't do that.
I'm gonna give him sores all over his body.
Don't do that. That's disgusting.
And, I'm gonna kill all of his livestock, you know.
Stop saying things. Just stop.
And I'm gonna blame the whole thing on you. Alright, let's go, bud. Remember, don't listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud.
Hey, definitely listen to that show. It's awesome. It's really cool. He's really a dick.
I heard that.
All right, our next guest is Ian Harris. He is a comedian. He also has a podcast called Critical and Thinking. How are we doing? You got some specials too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Doing well, thanks. Yeah, couple of comedy specials that you could maybe find if you really dug deep enough. They are in the obscurity now folder, but yes.
What's awesome. So how long have you been doing comedy?
Let's see. October will be 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's
Although
awesome.
I'm not doing it. Since the pandemic, I've done one show since 2020. So, yeah. So I don't know that I'm going back to it because I don't. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I've got a bunch of other stuff going on. And I'm just like, maybe I'll get back to it. Maybe I won't. I'm probably not getting another special for various reasons. So I'm like, what's the next thing I'm going to do? You know?
Right. Oh, okay.
Ian, you look like you're 35, so you've been doing comedy.
Yeah.
You know, telling jokes of your classmates doesn't really count here. That's
Yeah,
not
right.
really.
My teeth look like they're 60. So 51 this year. 51 this year.
51.
Wow. Oh man.
I started right around. Well, I tried to start on my 21st birthday. So I grew up in the Bay Area, and I tried doing comedy when I was 18. It's all I wanted to do was comedy and write screenplays. So I was trying to do stand-up comedy when I was like 18 years old, and the only place in San Francisco, there's the Punchline, and I believe they were 18 and over, but at the time they weren't doing a showcase, so they wouldn't let me do the showcase or whatever the deal was. I don't know. And I used to bug them every week, and they would just be like, no, there's no open mic here. Go to an open mic. The only open mic was the Holy City Zoo, which is a very, very famous little tiny hole-in-the-wall comedy club that Robin Williams was a part owner for a while. And it was just like all these super famous people came to the Holy City Zoo, but it was 21 and over. So on my 21st birthday, I tried to go do comedy, and I went down to the Holy City Zoo after bugging everybody for like 3 years. And I was a comedy nerd, so I knew like I I knew who everybody was, even if they weren't famous at the time. A lot of them are famous now. But like, I remember Patton Oswalt was up there that night. He was not remotely famous at the time. And Robin Williams did a set. And I think Wiley Roberts, who was like a Bay Area hero, Johnny Steele, like all these guys that I looked up to. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to try to go up and do my first time ever on stage and follow these guys. So I chickened out my first time on stage.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to go up to Robin Williams. Sorry. No. Yeah. So I ended up doing it October 18th, 1992 was my first time. I had moved to LA because I had a screenplay that I wrote that got optioned, and I moved to LA and went on stage at the Ice House at this showcase that I had auditioned for in October 18th, 1992. I still have the videotape.
Wow.
So what you call, that place, it was called, what, the zoo? What was it called? Was it
the Holy City Zoo?
Holy City Zoo? Did you practice in front of like a real zoo first with a cage of hyenas?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was a zoo in the Vatican.
Kevin doesn't know what to do with himself. There's a real comedian on the show.
I would not even try to copy this guy. No way.
But you know, it's good though. Just go if you go to the monkey cage, then you get used to people throwing their shit on you. So, so that's always good. Which works well when you go to places like when you do what I do and you go to like the Deep South. It's very similar. They throw their shit on you there too.
That was good.
Okay, so you're talking literal shit, not just emotional shit, right?
Yes.
Because emotionally, they're going to get you.
They always throw their emotional shit. That's the.
How hard is it for you to be a comedian now in a whole country that the world thinks is pretty much a laughingstock?
Yeah, you know what's funny? You know what's funny is everybody. Look, I'm super liberal, but I do hate the over woke crowd, and I do think that people let the political correctness go crazy. I think they don't. I think a lot of the overly woke people are super irrational, and they're not listening to what people are saying. They're listening to certain words and getting triggered by nonsense. Yeah. That being said, the right wing in this country thinks, I hear all the time, oh, you must be really hard to be a comedian with all these liberal woke people. And I'm like, no, actually, in the last few years, since 2016, 17, the only jokes I've ever been told not to say are Trump jokes. I would go places and they go, don't talk about Trump because the people get really upset. And it's like, you mean the people that call everybody snowflakes?
Wow.
They run off. No shit. And that's true. Like the only time I've ever been called names or somebody tried to fight me or whatever has always been like a Trump joke or
wow.
It's weird. And it's like, and the funny thing is this, like I don't think conservative. That's the other thing is like what 98% of comedians are liberal. Like, so you would think it's a super high amount of people. But my friend used to say, liberals make the best comedians, conservatives make the best audiences. That was before Trump. I think there's something to that in that in the old days you would get, a lot of conservative people, they might not like what you say necessarily, but they would, okay, I can laugh at myself. I'm a redneck and that's funny. And you made fun of rednecks. Haha. Whereas liberal people would be like, that was great, but it really kind of hurt somebody's feelings here today. And they, they get a lot of the, ooh, and there's a lot of the, I'm from San Francisco. So like I said, so it's like the greatest comedy crowds in the world are San Francisco. Any comic you talk to, they'll tell you San Francisco is where you want to go. But it can be very judgy. They're very hypercritical of your comedy because they know comedy. So if you do anything that's hack or been overdone, they will immediately go, that's been done. Don't do it again. But they can also be judgmental in the political correctness way. So you've got to be able to do stuff that is good. And you can be edgy, but they have to know where your intention's coming from. And you do get that where, you get people who you say something and it's always kind of like the pretty well-off white people that are upset by proxy for the other people. Like, if you do make a joke that's kind of edgy about somebody that might seem racial or it might seem sexist, whatever, like it's always the people that aren't affected by it that are really upset for the other people. It's like it's like a trope. It's like a running gag where as a comic, you're like, no, look at the people. Look at the black guy that I made. He's laughing. Like, stop getting upset for him. He's fine.
It's a form of activism without actually doing anything about solving a problem.
Yeah.
Self clear conscience.
But it's good that it keeps you on your toes. I mean, right? It's like because you also have to know where the line is. Like, there is a line between being complete douche and being funny. Like, you know, if you're just a shock comic for shock comic value, you probably suck. You're probably a crappy writer. You probably rely on dumb stuff. And if you also never say anything but "What's up with kittens?" then you're probably suck as well. You know, like
Yeah.
But what is up with kittens?
Well, I got a few stories for that. I have 5 cats, so I could probably do a whole lot of jokes about cats.
You know, honestly, I bet you there's years ago we were trying to come up with like what's a tour, like, you know, they always have tours, right? Like like the Kings of Comedy, and then there was like the Housewives of Comedy, and then it was like the Rednecks or whatever, the blue collar comedy.
Blue collar, yeah.
It was always like, and then my friend was like, "Hey, we should do one." And it's like midlife, and I'm like, "We're 2 middle-aged guys." I don't know any middle-aged guys that identify with being middle-aged guys. Like maybe middle-aged women. There are middle-aged women out there who that's a thing. But I don't know guys that are like, "I'm middle-aged. Let's go support other guys that are middle-aged." Like guys don't care about that sort of stuff. You're always trying to find the niche is not too obscure, but it's got to be like if you want to do a tour, it's got to be like this group of people. What's something that people identify as? Like, oh, I'm an atheist. Okay, cool. Oh, I'm a Christian. It's Christian comedy. Something that people go, I identify as that thing. And you could probably get away with like cat people comedy.
Right? Yeah. That could be a thing. I could see that.
The crazy cat lady comedy. That's like a thing. And then you would just have, and just go up and you could be, or crazy cat person, I should say, because it's no longer, I know a lot of crazy cat dudes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes. Just, and that would probably, I bet you people would flock to the crazy cat person comedy.
Yeah, I think that could work, especially if you keep doing like misdirects at the last second and be like, "Oh no, I was talking about a cat." You know, just to make it sound like it's about one thing, and then, "Oh no, that's a cat."
Ian, have you ever played Montreal?
No, I have not. Actually, I thought a couple years I was going to do the Just for Laughs, the Montreal Festival, and I did not. I'm not exactly sure why I didn't do Montreal. I wasn't allowed to do one of the other festivals. And that's a story I won't really go into, but I did get banned from a couple of comedy festivals in the early 2000s. And I don't know if that affected my Montreal or if Montreal just didn't like what I was doing at the time, but I never did Montreal. A lot of my friends did. Almost everyone I know did New Faces or have done something, I was I directed a pilot for a TV pilot that won a Montreal TV pilot contest one time.
Oh,
that's
nice.
it.
Oh wow.
And I love Vancouver. I've done Vancouver. It's a great comedy club.
Yeah, that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
One of my favorite crowds in the world. I think next to San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver, Boston, those are probably the best comedy crowds.
Oh, flattery will get your thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
go for it, Billy.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. So you were talking about like how you've gotten pushback, like don't tell Trump jokes, right? Do you get that same kind of thing with atheist jokes, or have you not had much pushback there? Or?
Well, I mean, a little bit, I guess. Like, so here's the thing. So I did comedy from like 92 to 2006 full time, pretty much. That was my job. And then in 2005, my wife had a kid. I didn't have a kid. I am not capable of doing but so we had a kid, and I was doing a lot of voiceover work and a lot of other stuff. And like I said, I'd literally been banned from a couple of comedy festivals. I was up for Mad TV, went to producers like 3 years in a row. I thought I was going to replace Jimmy Fallon on SNL. And it's a long story, but basically I was supposed to go meet Lorne Michaels. I had my whole thing planned. And then last minute they were like, no, we're going to do something different. And I ended up not getting that opportunity. And that's when they brought in, I believe, Lonely Island. I think they wanted me to come in because they can do impressions. So they were going to have me kind of be the impression guy. But one person didn't like my look. They thought I was too edgy looking. So I didn't end up going to meet Lorne Michaels. And then after that, I had a kid, and I was like, I don't really want to be on the road full time with the kid. I don't want to be that dad that's like, see you in 20 weeks, honey. I didn't want to be that thing. Yeah. So I quit doing comedy for about 4 or 5 years. And then I was like, I'll just go up on stage in LA, and I just never did because I just didn't care about it. I'm not a big fan of doing showcase shows in LA unless it's like for something. I prefer to do like, give me a stage and let me do an hour. Like, I don't want 5 minutes in front of people who don't care to see me. So I just kind of fell out of doing comedy. And then 2011, I realized that my daughter was like, guys, 5 or 6. I don't remember. I think it was my 2011. So it was my 40th birthday. It was a Wednesday night. And I remember my wife was out of town and I was watching my kid. And I had been talking about like, I realized she never knew me as a comedian. So my whole adult life, like all I've ever really done as an adult, as a job has been stand-up comedy. And then here's my daughter who's like 5 going on 6, and she didn't know that I was a comedian. She thought I was a voiceover guy and a guy who trained fighters. And she was like, never occurred to her that she had, no idea basically how I identified. So I felt weird. I was like, that's so strange that my daughter doesn't know who I am. So I took her to an open mic and cause I just wanted her to see what I do, I'm like, I'm just going to go up one time and just do what I do. And it was a coffee shop. So I was able to bring a 5-year-old to a coffee shop because it was this little coffee shop in Culver City. And I went up and I just kind of crushed it because I'm, it's all a bunch of beginners doing open mic at a coffee shop. And I was somebody, toured the world for 15 years or something. Right. So I could see her face in the back, like, oh my God, like she was so amazed. And then I was like, man, why do I stop doing this? So then I decided I was just going to go on stage, and I realized I didn't need to do what I did before. Like, first off, my comedy was getting old. My material was getting old when I quit.
Yeah.
And then it's 5 more years so I'm like, I threw away my entire act. I said, since I don't need this for a living, I don't care if anybody books me. I'm now 30 something with a kid. I've already been turned down for SNL and Mad TV 3 times in a row. I'm not going to go to Montreal, or I'm not a new face anymore. So I'm like, I'm just going to go up on stage when I feel like it and just riff and just talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. And if people hate me, I don't care because I'm not there for them. I'm there for me. And that's when I started doing a lot of jokes about religion and skepticism, because I'd always sprinkled it in because I've been an atheist my whole life and I've been a skeptic my whole life. But before I did regular comedy, and then I would mask the other stuff of like, what's up with these ghost shows? And I would talk about the ghost shows, and I would put in all my little jabs at religion and stuff, but it wasn't all about that. And usually people liked me and they'd go along with me at that point, or I'd do some characters and it was always fun. And sometimes it'd get a little edgy where people were like, ooh, but it wasn't a big deal. So then in 2011, when I started doing comedy gigs, like, I'm just going to go up and talk about religion, and I'm going to, and just things that people believe without evidence, like Bigfoot and ghosts and astrology and anything that is nonsense, and just talk about it. And then I said, I'm going to put it together an hour, and I'm going to tape it just so my daughter can have something that I can show her when she gets older. She can look at what I do and go, oh, that's what my dad used to do, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And that evolved into this whole, I started touring a little bit with some friends, and we started doing, long story long, all the clubs that I worked at for years and years wouldn't have me back.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Because they were like, well, we haven't seen you. What are you doing now? And I'd go, oh, I'm doing this. And they'd go, no, we're not having you come on stage for 45 minutes and talk about religion. No. If you want to do what you used to do and do impressions and do this and that, please come back. We'd love to have you. So I started booking my own. I would call them and I go, do you have a night off? And they go, yeah, how about Wednesday? So I would book Wednesday, and I would just 4-wall it, and I'd hit up all the atheist and skeptic groups in the area. And then I started renting theaters, and I started doing that. And every now and then a club would be like, cool, come back. But most of them were just afraid that I was going to piss off the crowd. And so when I was doing my own shows, like I was marketing and targeting groups that were sympathetic to what I do. Or I would run an ad in the newspaper or on the radio, and I would say, this is what I'm doing. And if you come and you don't like it, you're a moron. Like, you
shouldn't have come in the first place.
It's very clear what I'm going to do here.
Right. You're going out of your, and we still had people do that. They like read the whole write-up in the newspaper, and like we could cover stories, like coming to whatever. And they'd read the whole article, and they come and they go, well, yeah, I was really mad what you said about Jesus and blah, blah. I'm like, you had to come out of you had to buy a $30 ticket to go to a theater on a Wednesday night in Tucson, Arizona to be mad at what you read about? Like,
they're called Karen. They're called Karen. That's what they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I just read the word comedy, man. I don't. That was it. That's all. I stopped after
I can't read. I can't read. I don't know what it said.
So it was, but you know, the weird thing though is that because I wouldn't just do religion, I'd talk about other stuff as well. People usually they'd like part of what I did, right? Oh, I loved how you talked about astrology, or, you know, the Christians always had no problem if I made fun of Islam. They had no problems if I made fun of, you know, Bigfoot. But as soon as I talked about Jesus, or the new age liberal type people might come in and love all my religion bashing and all that, but they might believe in astrology. They might be like, well, astrology's real. And I'm a Sagittarius, so I didn't like you. And so I would.
They always have to ask your sign first, though, too.
Well, yeah, of course.
Like, what's your sign? And you're like, it's this. And they're like, oh, that's the opposite of mine. So that's the way I knew I hated you.
Right, exactly. Yes, it's so yeah, so I had a lot of that kind of stuff going, and it was but yeah, I mean, I didn't really, but even doing those shows, I would get the people go, hey, you might not want to bring up Trump. Like there was a show, so my podcast partner and I, Ty Barnett, he's not an atheist. He's a pretty decent critical thinker, but he never considered himself a skeptic. He's not religious, but he's also not atheist. But our idea when we started doing another show, so I was touring my own thing. We had Evolution of Comedy, and then I just toured on my own. And then my thing built into the taping that I did, I was going to do it live for Sirius XM because it was the night of the Mayan apocalypse. And the idea was that when the world doesn't end, we're going to go live at midnight East Coast time, 9 o'clock my time. And it was like a Friday night. And I sold out a theater and I gave the money to CFI, who was across the street from the theater. And it was just going to be something I did for fun. And I asked my friend if he would come and tape it. He's a film guy, worked in film a lot. And he goes, why don't I just come down and bring all the cameras and the jib and do the whole thing? And why don't we tape it like a special and see what you can do with it? And so I had Emery, who's, I don't know if you guys know Emery. He's used to run Ardent Atheist podcast, and him and Heather, his girlfriend, they've been around forever. And he also used to be a comedian and directed a couple comedy specials. So he directed it, and we turned it into a special and ended up selling it as a comedy special. And and then from there, it's like, then all of a sudden I had this brand of like, that's what I do is,
Yeah, the atheist comic or the skeptic comic,
I'm just glad you didn't have to start back with your daughter watching in the background as a young child, and start back since you got no material. You had to start with the poop jokes and
Yeah, right.
It's been a long time I've been out of the loop, guys.
It's funny because in the first special I did, I closed with a joke about more of a story about my daughter, and people always go, "It's one of my favorite jokes." And the funny thing about it is, the way I tell it literally how it happened. And it wasn't meant to be a joke. And the other thing is it's the only joke I didn't practice. So I had written the joke like maybe 6 months before I did the special, but I purposely never did it on stage because I didn't want to tell the joke. I didn't want to I wanted it to feel like I was just telling a story. So I actually just told the story from memory on stage, and I closed with it. And people were like, "You're crazy closing with something you've never done on stage before." But it ended up being like huge that people still talk about. Like I still get emails from people, or if I do shows, they're like, "Are you going to do that original sin thing?" And it was just, and it's funny because it came organically. I was literally trying to write a joke about original sin, because I was trying to hit every topic that I thought was stupid in whatever, in anybody's beliefs, from alternative medicines to whatever, and all the Bible things I thought were silly. And I could not come up with a joke that hadn't been done 1,000 times, right? Mm-hmm. So I was trying to talk with a friend to talk it out on the phone in the car. The car's Bluetooth, and you can hear the whole conversation right in the car. And my kid was like 6 at the time, maybe, I think it's around 6.5. And when we hung up the phone, she's like, "What are you talking about? What is this original sin thing?" And I had this whole conversation with her because I'm like, because she didn't even know what I was talking about. She didn't know anything about the Bible. I obviously didn't, subject her to that. And so I had to explain it to her I'm not going to do the whole joke, but I did this, explain it to her in this metaphor. And I made this ridiculously over the top metaphor. And she goes, Dad, that's funny, but can you actually just tell me what really happened?
Yeah, yeah, I remember this.
And I literally
punching
told
everybody in the face.
her, yes, exactly. And then I literally
remember.
told her the actual story, and she goes, could you please quit making up stupid stories and tell me what happened? And I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious. Like a 6-year-old couldn't tell the difference between these two insanely ridiculous stories. And one was actually the Bible.
That's brilliant.
And I was like, I got to tell this on stage and see how it works. And it's funny. It's like the only time I've ever done that, though.
Yeah, I've said it before because the whole story is insane, but we're used to hearing it. So it doesn't sound insane to us. But if you can remove yourself from knowing it, you're like, what in the hell? Like, all of it. You're like, this is crazy.
The familiarity with it is what,
I think it's also the veneer of an ancient text that gives it somehow some clout that it doesn't deserve. People think because it's an ancient text, it's something from the old days. Somehow it has merit. But when you dumb it down, saying, okay, so he sacrificed himself to himself in order to save us from himself because some dirt man and a rib woman took advice from some dietary advice from a snake in a magic garden. It sounds so stupid, but it's in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Yeah.
No, but the funny thing too is that I actually, when I opened that show, I opened because it was the apocalypse, and I had my friend who's a big voiceover guy do a Morgan Freeman impression, and he opened it up by saying, "This is God, welcome to the apocalypse," and then he was like, "No, just kidding, welcome Ian Harris," and then I came on stage, and the thing is that I opened with all these. I just went through all the different apocalyptic claims, how what's his name said this, and just all the ones, and then there was this one, there was 67 of these claims and 304 of these claims, and I went through all the claims, and I'm like, and the only thing they have in common is that they're all bullshit, right? Like none of them have come true. But the thing about the Mayan apocalypse that I did like a little bit about that, which was, it's weird that we have this weird relationship with ancient stuff, where on one hand, they knew more than us. They're mystical. The Mayans must have known something that we didn't know. The Egyptians must have known something that we didn't know. And then at the same time, they were morons and couldn't move rocks.
Yeah.
So it must have been aliens.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, okay, so they're psychic and they can see the future and know when the world's going to end, but they can't move rocks and look at the lunar cycle because without aliens helping them. Like it's such a weird thing. Like,
yeah, because if white people didn't do it, it must be aliens.
That seems to be
it's such a strange dichotomy, because there's so much of that where it's like this kind of worship of ancient technology and all this sort of stuff, or ancient wisdom, yet their technology isn't so great. Like it's very strange, and I'm like, they're only a couple thousand years. They're identical to us. Like Homo sapiens have been around for what, hundreds of thousands of years at this point. Like we're talking about people a few thousand years ago. Yeah. The exact same brain and whatever, and it's like, and it's so like I don't know, egocentric to think that we could create computers and put stuff into a little chip. But there's no way they could cut down a tree. It's just too complex for them. But listen to them because they know when the world's going to end.
Right.
Right, because we have this magic text that everyone has said is magic our whole life, right? Like our whole lives, they told us this is magic. This is literal magic. And I think we're so used to hearing that we're so willing to accept it. Right, the people in the past had some magic, and the magic's gone now, but it existed. I swear.
Yeah. Right.
It's funny though. So, like I told you, my podcast partner Ty, he's become more and more skeptical. I think he's developed this critical thinking stuff a lot more on doing the podcast because we talk about that stuff so much. And he was never a political guy. He says he's like super political, and he's just like me, where it's like vote, get out, whatever you got to do, like all this. But there was a piece of that he always says, he goes, I'm ashamed to admit the first time I ever voted was for Barack Obama. Because I was like, oh, a black guy might win presidency. Yeah. So he voted, he goes, the first time I ever voted was for Barack Obama. And then now he's like, he votes local. He does he does everything that you're supposed to do. but his critical thinking skills have gotten way better on our show because of just the people we have on and the stuff we talk, but also seeing how the country has gone. But one of the things that it's funny to me to see from an outsider's perspective. We talk about like the QAnon people and stuff. And he's like, how do they not see how absolutely insane this sounds? That they think like JFK is going to come back from the dead and JFK Jr. and they're going to be Trump's vice president and anoint him king. And it's like, I mean, that's literally what they believe. And they're hanging out for almost a year now in Dallas, waiting for JFK to, like, if JFK was going to come back, he's going to go back there. But
people were 100 years old.
He loves that spot, you know. He loves.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
when his ghost first walked out of his body, and
Right.
Fond memories.
but he goes, we're talking. He's like, these people are in. How could they possibly believe? And then it doesn't. And then he doesn't show up. And then they move the date. And then he doesn't show up again. And they're like, and why would JFK, a liberal, be Trump's? Why would he anoint Trump king? And all this kind of stuff. And I go, dude, this is what I've been telling you for 20 years. It sounds like to me when people mention Jesus or Muhammad or any of these, like he rode a winged Pegasus and he was in a cave and came out 3 days later. This is what it sounds like to me when religious people say stuff. I laugh out loud sometimes. I'm like, you really believe this? It's exactly the same as JFK's coming back. It's no different.
Right. Nowhere, no, as much as it's just as insane. Yes, absolutely.
But it's weird when you're used to that, like you're saying, like you're used to hearing magic, so it doesn't seem crazy. But then when a new form of crazy comes along, you can recognize that new form of crazy if you weren't indoctrinated to it. And that's interesting. That should be like a lesson for everybody.
I think Scientology is a perfect example of that because we haven't grown up hearing about it at all. Then it shows up and they're like, this is a crazy story. There's like, what is it, like warplanes from an alien dude? I don't even know. It's completely nuts.
We're all housing alien.
Crazy the one before. That's what you have to do.
Yeah. But it's just like, and I was listening in psychology and the psychology course, and they were saying the repetition, if you keep hearing something over and over, you can know that it's a lie the first time, right? You hear it 20 more times from 20 different people. And even though you knew it was a lie, you start to accept it as a proposition just because of how frequently, and it's like almost like brainwashing tactics and stuff. Like you can just hear it, that repetition, and it just can program your brain.
So I should start telling Amy every single day I have a really big penis.
Yeah, do that. Yep. Wait, you don't already do that?
We'll all confirm. So it makes it more credible.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly. Yes.
Appreciate y'all.
Serious question though, Ian. To piggyback on what Brentley was saying there, do you feel that often Hollywood also has some skin in the game there? For example, you hear the story of Jesus. But when Cecil B. DeMille's shows start showing up, all of a sudden, it's not just a story you hear. It's something you actually saw on TV as well, and it gives you even more clout.
In what way? When you like...
Well, the Bible stories are ridiculous when you think about them, when you hear them. But if you hear them, and then you see them on the big screen, they become part of the fabric of the culture. And they become so much more easily acceptable and to be absorbed by the public.
Yeah,
praise Iron Man.
I think that's true, but yeah, that's a good thing. Like a good point. Like as a writer, I write screenplays and make movies and trying to do more. But then I wish I could do a higher level. But the point is that I've written a lot of stuff and whatever, and I study screenwriting, and I have a fundamental problem in my writing is that I have a hard time suspending disbelief, and I'm kind of an analytical person, so I always solve every problem. So when I'm watching a movie, I'm like, well, all she has to do is tell the guy, and it's over. Like, why does she not tell him? Just tell him, and then it's done. Like, like the guy who's undercover, and he doesn't just pull her aside and go, look, I'm undercover. Just don't tell anybody. My name's Bob. You don't have to drag it on until she goes, well, your name's Bob, and you're a cop. I hate you. And then there's got a romantic comedy. It's all I'm always trying to, and so I have a problem when I'm writing, where I'm like, well, I could just solve this right now. I have to make sure, which makes my writing good sometimes, because I really have to make sure the problem's good, or that there's a serious problem that you got to solve. But it also can make my writing really horrible, because sometimes I'm just solving stuff too quickly and just not.
Right.
And I
Every
think
where's
problem
the
solved
drama
like
then,
real quick
right?
in the most logical way.
Well, yeah, no, because I've seen it. You have to think of these characters like when you're writing stuff with like that. Characters like sometimes aren't people because people will just communicate.
Right.
Like you said, pull aside and be like, hey, we should just talk about this real quick. Instead, it's like, no, I'm just going to hush up about this and the drama will build as a result.
Right.
Yeah, you wouldn't have any Zach Morris hijinks because everybody'd be able to figure.
Zach Morris is trash. Watch that on YouTube.
It's funny though, because what I really force myself to do is like when I think about like I like horror movies. I think they're fun, but I don't get scared of horror movies because I don't believe in magic. So I don't believe that demons are coming back or that the ghost is there or whatever. It's laughable to me. So I like if it's a good movie, suspenseful, I can go with it. And in their world, the ghost exists. I'm okay with that. If I watch Harry Potter, I can totally believe in that world, magic exists, and I'm fine with it. Dragons exist, cool. Iron Man, totally cool with it. Spider-Man, sure, in that world. And I try to treat religious stuff that way, but it is really hard because I'm like, I know that other people think it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes me really like when any script that comes in, that I have to work on or my daughter's an actress. So it's like, I'll read scripts with her and I'll see it. And it's like, anytime they mention, like there's a character that mentions God, it drives me nuts. But I'm like, well, you know what? Most of the planet, it's not that weird that the mom's like, you got to go to church, honey. Like, I'm like, I would never write that. But I'm like, well, the rest, as long as it's not like some stupid preachy thing. But I'm like, if it's just regular people going to church, well, that's what most people do. So that's okay if you're doing a movie about that and that character goes to church. Okay, that's cool. But it is funny though that we can, as like, non-believers, we can usually suspend disbelief for other magic, but it's really hard for that one, I think, because of that reason that we know other people don't think of it as, that they think it's real. And I found that with it's kind of laughable to me with horror films. I have people walk out go, oh my God, I'm so scared. I'm like, well, of what? Like, it was a movie.
Okay, see, I actually have to say, because with the horror movies, I can get scared of those things. And it's one of those, I know 100% it's not real. Don't believe it. But there's a part of my brain that goes, okay, but what if it is? And it's like, okay, fine. Yeah, and it's like, it'll be creeping in the back of my subconscious. And no matter how much I tell it to shut the fuck up, it comes back. So I actually have a weird relationship with horror movies because I enjoy a lot of the stuff with it, but I have to be careful because if it goes like The Nun is one where her visage has haunted my brain. And I know it's like, I can't go too far with that one because my brain will try and turn it on me.
Yeah, because like I know that this stuff isn't real, but guess what? The dreaming me doesn't.
Yeah,
he doesn't seem to care what is real.
And when you have a really good imagination, you really feel like it's next to you.
I think for me, like in the moment, I can be, especially if it's one that's jumping out at you, and there's that.
Oh, I hate jump scares.
Startling. There's a difference between startling and being scared, right?
Yeah.
And while I'm in the moment of watching the movie, I'll be like, no, don't do it. But I think the difference is when it's over and I walk away. If the lights are out in the house, I don't go, man, is there a ghost going to come? Like if I hear a noise, I don't think like, but I know people that after they watch a movie, I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day about this, where they're like, we watch stuff in movies and it becomes real to us. If you believe it. And then, I mean, think about all the things, think about aliens, think about how aliens have been shaped and alien abductions and UFOs. And remember in the old days, they were little green men from Mars. And it wasn't flying saucers. There was just spaceships. I don't even know what the spaceships were at the time. But it was little green men because of Communion. The guy who wrote Communion described them as little grayish green men or whatever the deal was. Yeah. And then we had Area 51 or Roswell. And then someone saw something was a saucer shape. So then everything became flying saucers. And then when Spielberg created Close Encounters, and all of a sudden they came out these long, spindly gray things with big eyes and bulbousy heads. And then that got doubled down on, and now now people see and are abducted by the aliens that are in our culture created by movies.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Which goes right back to what I was saying earlier. If Hollywood has some skin in the game, they really influence the tale,
right,
and give it life, make it more real for the rest of us.
So another big influence also is podcasts and stuff. And I have to note that there's some similarities you have with someone because you're both bald. You both have a podcast. You both have fighting such. Are you the good twin of Joe Rogan?
Yes. I'm Ho Jogan. You know the funny thing about the Joe Rogan thing is, and I see people, and it drives me like Ty and I talked about this on our podcast. Like, I actually know Joe. I mean, I don't know him really well or anything, but he actually is a decent guy, and if you listen to what he said, a lot of the stuff he said, he wasn't really. A lot of people went after him for dumb stuff, and we talked about it on the podcast where he should have been. When he said the Planet of the Apes thing, I was like, "Whoa, that's insane."
Yeah, that was bad.
What's weird to me is that there's all these people I know that are still defending him, even after he came out and said what I said was wrong. And he said, "I apologize. I should have never said that. Even after he took ownership of it and said, yeah, it was really messed up of me to do that. There are still people out there going, why should Joe Rogan have to apologize? Ask him. He freaking apologized. Like,
did it.
Yeah. I mean, because it's wrong, and maybe it was a different time. And maybe he was just trying to be funny. And maybe he was just trying to be edgy and poke the bear. And he doesn't really believe those things, which I know he doesn't, because I know him. I know, at least I know him enough, and I know who he is, and I know about him. The anti-vax stuff, again, some of the stuff he said was completely stupid and ridiculous. And I hate that he platforms morons like Jordan Peterson and this
Alex Jones.
yeah. But at the same time, he also platforms people who do get to, like, when he had the moon landing thing, and he brought on Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he played the dumb guy. He goes, I'm too stupid to understand this. Explain it to me. And he had Neil deGrasse Tyson explain him why the moon landing is real and blah, blah, blah. And he walked away going, cool, thank you. And I bet a lot of his people who listened to him that believed the moon landing was fake probably walked away from that going, oh, all right, cool. Now I get it. Same thing with the flat earthers. Like, one of his buddies is Eddie Bravo's a big flat earth guy. And he had another physicist or somebody come on and explain why the flat earth couldn't be flat and whatever. And it was great. And I think he's usually really good at playing dumb. He's not as dumb as he plays to be, but he also isn't he's not like super smart or anything like that, I don't think. But he plays this, what makes him a great interviewer. I'm too dumb to understand this. Please explain it to me. The downside to that is either he is kind of dumb or he believes it. So he brings on other people like the Jordan Petersons and people like that are good with word salad, that maybe have some sort of expertise in some sort of field. And he does the same thing with them and makes them look smart, and makes, like, he keeps having this Robert Malone, the guy who worked on the mRNA vaccine, who says he invented it. And he's like, and that's where he got some of his anti-vaccine. Like, you listen to his stuff. He says, get the vaccine. I'm not anti-vaccine. Early on, he's like, there's a lot of morons out there that are going to be anti-vaccine. He said that over and over. And then his position evolved into, I'm not anti-vaccine, but I don't think everyone should have to get it, because if we're healthy, we're going to live. And that was shaped by people that are smarter than him that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with Joe Rogan. And I think we need to push back on that. And I think that, but it's just, I'm tired of the people on the right who are like, Joe Rogan was canceled. No, he wasn't. He's still on. If anything, they just said, hey, you got to be more responsible. And these ones, and the times where they're like, he said the N-word 77 times. Well, did he? I mean, the Planet of the Apes thing was ridiculous. And he should be, whatever, that should be taken down. He should be reprimanded, whatever. He apologized. If you have issue with that, which I do, for sure. But then people go after stuff where he was quoting something and quoting a quote and said that someone said this thing. Like, you can't really say that he said it. He's quoting somebody else who said it and saying why it's bad. Like, that's where we need to stop. I say me, anyone on my side of history, the left. Sometimes it's overboard, and it's like, the Planet of the Apes thing was enough. We could have just gone after him for the Planet of the Apes. The anti-vax stuff was enough. Here's the 3 things he said, and this is why he needs to stop doing this, and this is why Spotify should do something about it, and this is why they should put a warning up, or take those off, or put up some facts there so he doesn't influence his audience who aren't that bright. But then to go after all these other things that are irrelevant, it does make it look like a witch hunt. And then the people that aren't smart enough to discern the difference go, see?
Yeah. What's interesting too is like, we always talk about how he's got these, 11 million views like monthly or whatever, right? And we're talking about that and we're like, that's why it's so important. But the thing is, I think we're looking at this almost backwards, because the reason he has 11 million views is because if he just interviewed like actual experts all the time, that's not sexy enough. That's not controversial enough. So the things that got him the 11 million views that are now we're going, you need to be responsible because you got 11 million views, is because of having those, those problematic people on the show. That's what makes the money. That's what, and it's sad, but it's true, So it almost works backwards.
Does make me wonder though, because Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye has a Netflix thing that he's doing and has a podcast that's very similar. Well, that basically is him asking questions to experts, and it'll be interesting to see how the numbers play out between the two.
Well, I think I actually don't really have a problem with even though I said the words platforming, I hate that. I hate saying platforming, because the fact is that if you don't platform people that have bad ideas, they find another platform and they're still platformed. For me, I don't mind bringing on an idiot or somebody who's got bad ideas, as long as I'm equipped, or bring somebody else on who's equipped to push back on those ideas and challenge those ideas. I think the problem with Joe is that he isn't necessarily equipped, or at least what works for him. He might be super smart. I don't know. But what works well for him is going, I'm a moron. Explain this to me. Like, it just seems to me that this would be weird. And he asks the questions that the dumb people who listen to him ask. And if he's got somebody who's on again, he's got an epidemiologist on, or he's had some amazing guests on. I mean, my friend Danielle Bellelli's been on there before. I believe there's a few scientists. I don't know if Carr Santa Maria. I mean, there's a few people that have been on there that are great. And it's like, when he has them on and he plays that, we get information. The problem is that he does that for the people that have misinformation as well. And sometimes he pushes back, but sometimes he's just not really equipped. I mean, Jordan Peterson, I think, is an idiot, but Jordan Peterson is very good at manipulating people with his words, and he sounds smart, Yeah. And if you don't know what he's talking about, and you don't know exactly what he's saying, or and it's really hard to push back against that.
I'm not sure he knows what he's talking about.
Is that?
I said, I'm not sure he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
Because he's got that reputation of being smart, he can say really stupid things and people still go, but that couldn't be as stupid as he's smarter than that. No, that's not as stupid as it sounds. Like the climate change means everything and all that type of stuff. It sounds like it's smart.
Have another person on as well that they can debate. That would be really cool. I mean, I know that that's necessarily Joe's thing. And sometimes, most of the time, Joe just has on like MMA guys or jiu-jitsu people, and he talks about, that sort of stuff. And that's cool. Like, and that's where it evolved into, it started there. And then somebody came on for some fitness guy came on, and then the fitness guy had other views. And then somebody else, and then one of his guys came on and started talking about flat earth. It was a jiu-jitsu guy. And then he was like, let's figure this out. So then he brought in like a Neil deGrasse Tyson to go, no, here's what, and that's how it evolved into this giant thing with everyone wanting to be on a show and people asking, I wrote this book and it's a bestseller. And just like, it's astrology. Cool. Let's bring that guy in and talk about astrology in his book. And I think it evolved into this thing that I don't think that's what Joe meant it to be. And but it would be nice to see him have alternate views, or have an expert on. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe he thinks these people are experts. Maybe he thinks, Robert Malone's is the expert, or, but it's like, somebody posted a thing where it's like 9 out of 10 dentists say this. And Joe's like, yeah, but what's the 10th one? Like they're not letting you hear his voice. Right. Like,
right. That's so funny. I just posted that the other day, and we already brought it up once on this podcast.
Oh, really?
Just brought it up again. That's great.
Because it is that there's that whole that's the thing with conspiracy people. It's like, well, but what if, right? And it's like,
Have any of us actually been to a dentist though who didn't ask if we were flossing?
True.
I would like to know if this 10th doctor actually exists.
Right. One dentist is like, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. Okay, that shit gives you cancer. That's what happens there. You can spread out your gum from your teeth. Come on now.
I got one last question for myself there. The late great Christopher Hitchens used to say that laughter is the beginning of emancipation. We've reached kind of a phenomenon in the past 20 years or so that comedy has been replacing news as a source of information. You know, you think of Jon Stewart, The Daily Show, Colbert, and all that stuff. Do you think this has, although we love to laugh and we can tackle some taboo subjects with humor, has that actually benefited us as a society, or has that maybe become a bit of a hindrance, especially regarding where we are now with the access of information and misinformation?
I mean, it's a good question. I think I've always said that, you know, what I love about what I'm able to do is that comedy opens up the little crack in people's defenses and allows you to talk about stuff. Like I said, I mean, if I'm on stage for 50 minutes and I make a joke about astrology and Bigfoot and whatever, blah, 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 and you're laughing at all of it, and all of a sudden I talk about your religion and everyone else is laughing and you're not, it makes you go, wait a second, this as ridiculous as the thing I was just laughing at, usually, or at least makes you go, oh, what am I missing? Or whatever that is. If you're laughing at the religion joke and then the astrology stuff, everyone else is laughing and you're like, but I believe in astrology. Well, wait, is it silly? And it's a good way to couch ideas in, for sure. But yeah, the downside to that though is that just same with movies, by the way, right? You can, but the downside of that is, of course, it also can bring in misinformation. And if it sounds good and it sounds funny and it sounds logical in joke form, then yeah. But I mean, I think ultimately the biggest problem is it still comes down to people. It still comes down to, you know, like we talk about this on our podcast all the time, where it's like, ultimately people are still voting for these people. Like when you think about, everyone looks at like a, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Mitch McConnell, and you're like, man, these people are just obstructionist assholes who don't want to do anything. And everyone we know sees and goes, why? But people keep voting for those people. So at some point, we have to be able to go, you need to learn critical thinking skills. You need to watch Joe Rogan and go, okay, Joe, you're not thinking critically here. Let me look that up and see. Don't just watch the YouTube video that confirmed my bias. And that's a public education thing. That's learning how to discern what's good information. And yet you might watch George Carlin and go, wow, that guy said some amazing stuff. The next step should be, let me look and see if what he said was true. And let me check the sources on that. Most people walk away and go, well, George Carlin said. And the good thing is that there are people that are right. And, you know, the Daily Shows often does their research, and that's great. But you also have Fox News, and you have other places that are trying to do comedy stuff now because it opens that up.
Oh, God, that's cringe. Yeah. Ian, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. Really appreciate that, man. That was great.
My
If
pleasure.
you want to find out more about your comedy, and where can you find you?
Well, my website is skepticcomedian.com or ianharriscomedian.com, or my YouTube channel. You can just Google me and go to my YouTube. I have put both of my comedy specials actually on my YouTube because one of them, both of them really, the distributor were, after they did their 2 years of airing on whatever network they were on, Hulu or Amazon or whatever. And then issues with distributors. So now that I have the rights back, I just said I'll give it to everybody for free.
Nice.
And then one of them is still on Amazon. It'll be on Amazon Prime probably for eternity. So yeah, my last one, Extraordinary, is on Amazon, and my other one, Critical and Thinking, same name as my podcast, and also Extraordinary, both on my YouTube channel. And then yeah, I mean, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. It's always at Comedioker, like comedy and mediocre portmanteau.
Clever.
Ian, thank you so much for doing this. Before we let you go, I gotta have you say hi. This is Ian Harris, and I took a left at the valley.
Hi, this is Ian Harris, and I took a left at the valley.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And that was Ian Harris. Funny guy. Great comedian. And I think he made some extremely valid point on a lot of subjects. You know, the thing about comedians is we never think of them as very deep people, But you start talking to them, you realize a lot of them are a lot smarter than you think.
Mhm.
And it does take some really good chops to be a
Absolutely.
comedian and be able to do some good timing. What do you guys think?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's they think about
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Concur.
This is the point. Ian's got the deep insight, and now I'm asking you guys, what do you guys think? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well,
Sure.
Ian did it all for us, okay?
Yeah, they
I'm
have
being
to think
deep.
about things more because they, it's like you have to look at it from all these different angles to come up with the joke that they know will tickle you, and it's yeah. So they have to think about it
Oh
deeply.
God, that's so.
I think it also depends on the comedian. The better the comedian, probably the deeper they can go. Some of them, they're just a shallow pool.
Yeah,
true.
absolutely.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much to Ian Harris for being our guest, and thank you to my co-host Sabrina Brent-Lee. No, Sabrina's not here. You're right.
Oh, shush,
She's
I'm
just a
right
disembodied
here.
voice. Brent-Lee, Bridget, and Hertzie. And thank
Hertzie's
you.
the disembodied voice now.
You can see the flash from my glasses.
You can follow us at leftofthevalley.ca. You can follow us on Twitter at LATV Podcast. You can follow us on YouTube or on Facebook /.com Left of the Valley. Give us a 5-star review where you find us. Helps us and helps others find the show. Send us an email at leftofthevalley@outlook.com. Become a patron. Go to patreon.com/LATV and help us grow the show. What am I missing? Nothing. Bradley, go for it. What do we got coming up?
Okay, so definitely check out the Unapologetics panel stream on YouTube, and definitely check out the Unapologetics podcast. Both these spelled with an X. Nikki's back, and the show's kind of in full swing now, so it's really great.
Not quite as good as our show, but it's a great show.
It is a great show. I plug you guys every time I put a video up on YouTube.
Week we have our old friend David Fitzgerald is coming back and talking about Mormons. That's going to be fun. And after that, we'll have Nick Fish coming back, versus guest. And going in March, we'll be talking to Dr. Ben Davis. We'll be talking about documentaries. And we'll have Valerie Tirico. We'll talk about wokeness. And we'll also be actually recording with the Free Prophets as this crew is going to be going. And then we'll be talking to Gerald Posner, talking about God's Banker. And also we'll be talking to Kathleen and Aubrey, an atheist and a Christian. And coming on the pipe, we'll have Seth Andrews and Eli Bosnick. Lots of great stuff happening on here.
Jeez,
Wow.
busy for part of the year.
That's the way we like to keep it. All right. Anything else that we had?
Have a great week.
Until next time, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance, and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's
We don't want to tell you that.
Fuck.
So you can
Well, 'cause
hit.
you don't hear your.
I was like talking to my wife, and she was like, I was gonna go ahead and have some sex with her, and so I had to go and buy a massive 50-gallon drum of lube because you know how that goes with women.
Excuse me, I had to yak.
It's got the best CDB oil, and all you got to do is put in Shapiro at checkout, and all you got to.
Right. So in the oil, you just want to get the right oil, and you don't want to get like the crazy liberal oil because liberals love lube.
Hold on. They don't like oil. They don't like oil at all. Nobody's trying to get one. There is no such thing as lubrication, solar lubrication. It doesn't exist. You got to go with oil.
You don't have any rag on a pan, you can go to your car. Hey, there's a little dipstick in there, and you can just slake it up. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do it. Don't
do that. No,
bad advice.
please don't.
Bad
Don't do
advice.
that.
No.
See, this is part of the reason I don't have a car. It doesn't worry. I'm not going to do anything.
All right.